Hey, welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff with the Hodl Review, and I'm really glad that you're tuning in, whether you're watching us on YouTube, Cinnamon, or Coil, or you're listening to us via podcast. Today, we have a great interview coming up with the CTO and co-founder of CoinField, Reza Bashash. Now, we're going to discuss their latest project, Sologenic, but we also want to get into a bit of the back history on CoinField and also why they, in the end, chose the XRP Ledger for their newest project. Now, Reza is no stranger to entrepreneurship, and really for a good number of years, right out of university, he started founding companies, working as CEO or CTO. Now, right out of university, he founded a company called Nightbat Entertainment and served as the CEO and founder. Went on to SideBuy.com or SideBuy Technologies as the CTO and founder. Then moved into iNext Web as founder and CTO, Denote Solutions, then Semantile Technologies as founder and CTO. Now, in 2017, Reza joined Bob Rass, and really there's a great story as to how they got into developing and putting together CoinField, but together they co-founded the CoinField exchange and CoinField as we know it. We're going to hear directly from Rez all about really the amazing ride for the past 2 years, and that's it. Get ready because it's all getting ready to start right now.
Hey, welcome to On the Chain. Chip and Jeff here. We have a very special guest, and we have Reza Bashash here today from CoinField and Sologenic. Hey, welcome, Reza. Great to have you with us here today.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
We're really looking forward to today's conversation. So,
yeah, same.
So, we wanted to get started, and we want to talk a lot about Sologenic. But we'd like to hear just a brief intro on CoinField. We're really interested in that. CoinField's been around for about a year or so. Can you just kind of give us a brief overview on CoinField?
Yeah, CoinField's actually been around for about 2 years now.
2 years.
And we started from Canada, and then we made our way to about 190 countries right now.
Wow.
CoinField's been more centric towards the XRP pairs, and we have reached a good decent volume on the exchange, and the plan is to add more features over time. And so right now we just launched credit card options, so people can pay and fund their accounts using credit cards and so on.
So if you backtrack just a little bit, 2 years, how did you guys start CoinField? What was that intro moment where you just said, aha, we got to get into doing something unique?
Well, it's interesting. That's a nice question. Haven't been asked before. But so it all goes back with me and Bob having a conversation. So we're trading crypto, and our backgrounds are crypto and technical and marketing and all that. So we're like, why don't we start an exchange? I think it's a great way because we have all these ideas laying around. We have we want to do this and that and that. And then, so we're having a coffee, and we're like, I think the first step to get there is to have an exchange. And so that's how we got into it. And then we actually had the exchange set up a couple of months after that. And we're working day and night to get the exchange up. So what we did was we brought the exchange live, and after a couple of months, we launched a second version, like a more advanced version of the exchange that had many different, different features and trading pairs. And so it was just like a relaunch of the whole platform with a lot of new tools and features. Like we added all sorts of market orders and limit orders and stop orders and everything that we wanted to have came in the second version.
Gotcha. And did you guys bootstrap it? I mean, in other words, did you go to like do angel funding in the beginning? Because building an exchange takes not only effort and programming, but it also takes time and effort and money, right? So how did you guys start off?
Oh, that's absolutely. I mean, running an exchange is like you said, it's not about the technology. Technology plays a big part of it, but you need to have legal banking relationships and funding, and a lot of different things need to be, there's so many different components for somebody to run an exchange. And yes, we bootstrapped the exchange in terms of funding. Bob and I have been in different companies. Bob's main background is in manufacturing auto parts. There's a couple of different factories for auto parts, and I've been engaged in a couple of different startups that exited. So we're like, this is a perfect timing for us to get this done. We had good banking relationships. We had a great knowledge of the whole thing. We had great lawyers backing us and giving us all the information that we wanted to start. So it was just a perfect moment.
So Sologenic, was that something you had the impetus in the beginning? In other words, did you guys kind of craft this whole thing, or is that something along the way as you got going? And I mean, and I'm not saying to reveal like the secret sauce, but it is a huge initiative and it is brilliant. And so where along the line did that actually come from?
Most of the things that we do are probably planned a year or two in advance. So the idea behind Sologenic was a very not old, but when we started CoinField, we knew that we wanted to do this. And so along the way, we got more familiar with the different technologies, with different blockchain, different projects. So it was just an idea back then, but we started working on that idea, sort of watering it and, taking care of it. And then about 6 months ago, we decided to basically start building the idea, work on it. And we chose the XRP Ledger for many reasons that I'm going to be talking about later.
As you get into Sologenic, do you have, like, if you think about that short elevator pitch, if you were to introduce us to Sologenic and you said, here's Sologenic, go, that elevator pitch, how would you describe it?
It's funny because I don't think there's an elevator pitch. You probably need an elevator to go to, it's got to be a long elevator, but Sologenic is an ecosystem. So it's not one thing. It's a combination of different things that altogether defines the ecosystem, the Sologenic ecosystem. And then in this ecosystem, you have different things from on-demand tokenization to crypto cards, crypto credit and debit cards, so that you can actually use and spend. And you have all the liquidity rewards program or stakings. And so there's so many things. And you have the community, you have the different things in the ecosystem. But in the ecosystem also we have the Solo coins. Yeah. So that's a completely different thing that is going to basically be used for many aspects of this ecosystem.
So the XRP Ledger, how did you guys look at other opportunities and solutions, or was that just something you knew inherently the only thing really good work? Because it's kind of interesting to see how you might have arrived at that, or was that right out of the gate where you said, look, we got the tool right here, and this is what we need to leverage, obviously because it's so interoperable.
Well, we have two things happen. One is that we personally like XRP, and I really like the technology behind it. So that's awesome. That's one thing. We love XRP.
Yeah, so we.
Second thing was the research, to be honest, and we had a lot of research. There's nothing pushing us to use the XRP Ledger. Yeah, we like the XRP coin, but we don't have to, necessarily use their ledger because we like the XRP. So we did a lot of extensive research for that. And we've been reviewing many different projects and blockchains, Ethereum, ERC20, Stellar, and all that. So we did a lot of research. And then I remember for 1 week, I've been kind of putting myself in the room, closing, like turned my phone off, and then I had all the documentation for the XRP Ledger, and then I went through every single piece and bit and details on trying to figure out if there's anything that will later on down the road will prevent us, from successfully launching Sologenic on XRP Ledger. And frankly, there was a lot of questions and things, and we reached out to the community, and we have advisors, and so we went through all these questions and challenges.
And at what point did you actually would you have reached out to, let's say, Ripple? In other words, did you have a conversation with them early on? I mean, did you queue them up? Did you use any resources on their side, or was it kind of stealth mode until there was a time where you got them involved? Were they involved in the beginning or somewhere along the path?
No, it's a great question. We've always been in touch with Ripple because of CoinField being an exchange with XRP as base pair, as one of the base pairs. And so we always were in talks with different things, different products from Ripple, from marketing to tech and all that. And then we got closer to Ripple when we started launching the XRP validator. And that's when we actually got in touch and with their tech team and, started making the validator, and later on they added it to their UNL list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, congrats on that. It's awesome. Yeah. It takes a lot of work running that, redundancies, all kinds of stuff to keep that bad boy up and running. And so, we've used stock platforms. Jeff and I talked about this, that have offered purchase of like fractional type of shares, right? Mm-hmm. So can you sort of elaborate on how that, using the XRP Ledger and the blockchain technology is different from like previous solutions that already exist out there?
Are you talking about different blockchain or different projects on the XRP Ledger?
There's a couple of different solutions out there that allow you to buy fractional stock, right? They'll allow you to buy you can buy a bucket of something, but you guys are the first ones really, I think, in the blockchain space to more or less introduce this. So it is a new venture and a foray into something really that's not been done before, to the best of our knowledge.
Right? It's funny. I know it's when we started doing this, we're like, the first question we asked ourselves, has anybody ever done with such technologies? And yes, there were a couple of other projects built on the XRP Ledger, but it was completely different. So it wasn't what we were trying to do. And so I think it's kind of interesting for, I think the general public doesn't really know of the fact that there's an XRP Ledger blockchain that you can build on top. Everybody thinks of XRP as the coin. And when we launched Sologenic, and there were all these questions asked, and people were asking me questions, and what's the benefit for XRP? Are you guys like launching something that's for the benefit of XRP and all that? But we're like, we're using the XRP Ledger, and this is something that everybody who are like holding XRP don't really know. It's just like have XRP, just trying to get the value up and or whatever. But we're here to use these tools built on the XRP Ledger. There's so many things that it's only in the documentation. You have all these things from checks to escrows to, trust lines and all that nobody really, I'm not saying nobody, but you really need to know the XRP Ledger blockchain to know about these stuff.
Would you say then that Sologenic is so much more than just fractional stock share, right? You're putting together something that, because fractional shares have existed on other, traditional platform, they come and go. But now it looks like you're creating an ecosystem that's so much bigger than that.
So the tokenization is one part. And so let me tell you a little bit about the tokenization and how it works.
Okay.
So basically there are different names, and you see different flavors for different blockchains. Like if anybody's doing the same thing, you have from synthetic, tokenization or representation of assets to in the XRP Ledger, we have the IOUs or currency issuance and all that. So the way Sologenic tokenization works is that we have implemented, and we're working on this Oracle, this implementation of the Oracle, that basically connects the blockchain to the external brokerage firms. Let's say you work with a traditional brokerage firm, your bank or whoever that you guys work with, and they have the capability to, buy and sell different assets on many different exchanges. And then so we're leveraging this. We're using these brokerage firms, and then we are tokenizing on demand whenever users buy or sell from CoinField. So essentially, this Oracle is the connection between the XRP Ledger Sologenic and the traditional financial markets, such as stock markets or ETFs. And we've kind of been able to get a couple of brokerage firms to give us the we have more access to more than 25 different global exchanges, stock exchanges to be exact. And so that gives us 30,000 different stocks that can be tokenized.
Nice.
And so that's the tokenization part. The second part, which I call it spend, is the crypto cards. So these crypto cards are cards, it's essentially like Visa, MasterCards, but these are crypto cards. You can actually use them across anywhere where there's a merchant device that you can pay with. And so essentially, users are able to collateralize their assets, their Solo coins, and their assets on the Sologenic ecosystem and spend them. So you're traveling. So this problem actually occurred to us when we're traveling to Hong Kong. Me and Bob were there for the Token 2049 event, and then as soon as we got there, we got a taxi. We went to the hotel, and the taxi driver wanted to get paid, obviously, and he was asking for Hong Kong dollars. I'm like, we don't have Hong Kong dollars. We have US dollars. I was like, I don't know, but you need to find somewhere to exchange that. So
Yeah.
He kind of got one of us as a hostage, not a hostage. It was like trying to make sure that we don't run away or something. So I went to the hotel and was like, I think 11 p.m. The exchange was closed. So I was running around town for half an hour to find an exchange that I can, exchange my US dollars with Hong Kong dollars. And we're like, what if there was really one, like, what if we could actually use a currency here that we can pay? And if we come to the realization, it's really difficult for merchants to start, at least for now. I'm pretty sure in the future this will happen. But for the time being, if you're looking for a really quick solution to use your crypto, then you have to be able to integrate that with the existing financial systems like, Visa, MasterCard.
Right.
And then instead of telling the merchants to accept crypto without anything. So it's going to happen in the future for sure. But for the time being, I think we got to leverage and we're going to use all the infrastructure that's been built for the past 30, 40, 50 years and start offering. So this is the second part. Call it spend, and using these technologies, you'll be able to spend your cryptos.
Are you planning on partnering with a Visa, MasterCard in the interim, or do you have an alternate solution?
No, we have a partner. We have a banking partner who's providing us all the details and everything. And we will announce more about the details when we have the milestone deadline coming up. So we have a roadmap that it's actually on our website.
One of the things like Jeff and I talk about, like we get excited about, CoinField. We've been watching it for a little bit now. And for us, we're both actually, oddly enough, we're based in Florida, right a little bit north of Miami. And you guys are in the US. I mean, so do you foresee that in the future, that maybe there's a way for you guys to maybe get in the US? Because we like what you're doing. Unfortunately, we can't support you just because of our location, and then we have to deal with other things, which is by state. Like, for example, Binance, came to the US are you guys coming to the US? Because we'd love to have have you as an option versus what we have limited right now, to be honest.
Frankly, we love coming to the US, but there are a set of regulatory steps that needs to be done before we can do it. And we've kind of started looking into all the options long ago to be able to offer services to the US, but that's something that's going to happen in the future. So we don't really have a specific timeline as when that's going to happen, but it will obviously, it's inevitable. We'll definitely do this, and it's just that the US has a very stricter state by state kind of different regulatory framework. So we would basically we would have to work with each state to be able to offer services to that state. So it's a lot of work. And what we did initially was we said, okay, so we have to do all this work to be able to enter the US market. And so that's going to take a lot of time and efforts, and we might lose focus and track.
Right, sure.
Building here. So we wanted to focus more on the actual technology, and then once the time comes, then we'll obviously do all the regulatory requirements, and we'll for sure come to the US in the future.
That's awesome. Have you had any feedback from like the Canadian government regarding the Sologenic initiative? Have they chimed in? I mean, it's a fairly big opportunity.
That's a great question. So just to clear that, the Sologenic ecosystem is actually being launched from our Estonian office, which is CoinField Ventures in Estonia. So the sales of Solo token and the Sologenic ecosystem will happen in many countries. We have the list on the website, but as of now, as of this interview, we're still not going to be allowing Solo to be released in Canada as well. Like I mentioned for the US, Canada also has some regulatory requirements, and we're working with our lawyers so that when it's the time when there's more understanding of everything, we really wanted to be operating somewhere that has these frameworks and regulatory requirements implemented, and Estonia is one of the countries, as you guys know.
Just talking about Estonia real quick, I mean, as you looked for different countries to launch in like that, what was your primary decision to go to Estonia? I know it's relatively friendly and open to attracting technology, but what was your primary decision there?
We got consulting from a couple of different firms to decide what's the best option for us. And so Estonia came up, and we did a lot of research, and we found out that it's actually a good place for CoinField to launch Sologenic. And even in Canada, I know of many coins and companies doing things because there are no regulations yet. And so that's where it makes it a little bit more difficult, because we're looking for the regulations. We want something to be black and white, not in the gray area.
Awesome.
We want to make sure what's right and what's wrong so that we can follow that. We don't really have to make the regulations ourselves. Whereas if there is regulatory frameworks and requirements, that we can just follow it. And so that's the case for Estonia.
It's really good to hear your perspective on regulatory, sticking to regulation and looking for regulatory clarity, and kind of, focusing in on those spots first, I think is really key. There's other exchanges out there that seem to be overstepping regulation and putting users in a predicament. So it's kind of refreshing to see this approach and understanding why you're not coming to the U.S. market, why you're taking certain steps within the Canadian market. I think that's a big issue, and it's good to hear that, because you're looking out. At the end of the day, you need to protect your interests from a legal perspective and everything else, but you have to protect your users' interests, because without the users, then there's nothing. You could have the best framework in the world, but if you put your users at risk, everything folds.
Which custodial solution are you guys using for Sologenic? Like, do you have, like, what happens once, like for the Solo coin, where is it kept? I mean, are you guys leveraging third party, something you built yourself?
That's a great question. So we've always been working for CoinField, where our custodial solutions are provided by BitGo. Mm-hmm. And so we're in talks with BitGo, Ledger, and all these companies to see which one fits, which one is better for Sologenic. But in terms of issuance of the coin, we're working with a third-party legal law firm to basically control the smart contracts, token creations, and all that. So these are all pre-planned and will be executed via multi-signature solution by us and the third party, so that we're not in control of everything, as to say. And so I think all the details of that is also in the white paper. And
what about a wallet or any sort of like a cold storage, for tokenized stocks? How will users? So is it your custodial solution? Like, for example, obviously we can't take part in it, but let's say when people start, they start investing, what happens to their investment? Like right now, you obviously have like a Ledger. There's a lot of cold storage wallets that you can leverage. But what's the solution? And maybe there's multiple solutions. But what are you guys looking at right now as you start, going into the future?
That's a great question, because as you know, issued currencies on the XRP Ledger are stored in XRP addresses. Mm-hmm. So if you have an XRP address and you have the secret key, private key, then you can take custody of your issued currency. So it's like the master wallet for all the issued stuff, the issued currencies, tokens inside that XRP wallet. So if you can move your XRP wallet from somewhere to another place, or if you can, custodial services are more towards holding the secret keys, private keys. And so if they hold the private key for an XRP address, they're essentially holding the key for all the other issued currencies within that address and whatever that address holds. So at the moment, we're working on some tools. So we're actually open sourcing these tools. I'm expected to release the information about these tools hopefully later this week.
Yeah, and here you are on an interview when you should be working on that, right? But we appreciate your time, Reza. What about another key thing that we got from some of our base and some of the viewers? They asked, what about insurance? They wanted to know more about insurance, because I think one of the things that frightens people is the fact they hear the horror stories, right? So someone new comes into this space and they've heard some horror story about somebody skipping town to India with the, we've all heard the horror stories. So what are you guys doing on that side to kind of put people at ease?
We're talking about insurance for the Solo coins, right?
Correct. Solo coins, or on the CoinField side too, because what if you don't move with the cold storage? What if you keep it basically with CoinField on that side, or you never move it off, right? So at some point, it could be possibly vulnerable. So what kind of minds?
It's a good question. So we work with, like I mentioned, BitGo Solutions, and they offer up to $100 million insurance on the coins they take custody, and we work with them for the majority of the coins. And for Solo, the coins, we're planning to also release a proof of solvency kind of thing for the Solo coins, so that users can check and audit all the assets held in the Sologenic ecosystem. Some details of that is in the white paper, but as we move forward, I think I'm going to release more information on how the proof of solvency is done.
I know we want to be respectful of Reza's time. It seems like he's pretty busy. He's got a lot. He's expected to start doing some releases here. So we want to be mindful of your time. So I think maybe just one or two other questions if you're good with that. If you have to run right now, we can always do that. But maybe a couple other questions. Jeff, you have something queued up?
This really has to do with going back to the tokenization of the stock and getting a better understanding. As you're tokenizing it, you're utilizing the Solo coin as part of the tokenization process. How does the change in valuation of the stock impact the tokenization, or the valuation of the token change that? What exactly is that relationship? That's something that I've kind of struggled trying to understand. I'm sure from a tech perspective, there's a good explanation of it.
Yeah. So Solo is one of the main purposes of Solo is so that we can settle with the brokerage firms. And Solo is basically transferred and converted to fiat. And that fiat is used for the settlement. So a lot of people have been asking, how's will they take Solo? No, they don't take Solo. But we have a system that we can control the liquidity to be transferred to the brokerage firms in the Sologenic ecosystem. And that is, it's one of, I think I mentioned in an older interview, that we wanted to have Solo. Initially, Solo was supposed to be a stable coin. And then we did a lot of research and we figured out that as the demand goes up, Solo also needs to rise in value and be able to provide that. And so that's when we decided that Solo needs to be a regular token that will grow and shrink via supply and demand. And we figured out that there's going to be a lot of demand for the tokenization of stocks on the blockchain. And so it kind of, when you have a lot of people getting into the system, buying the issued currency, let's say Tesla Sologenic version of Tesla. Right. When people are trying to buy these stocks, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, or whatever other stocks amongst the 30,000, then there is a demand for Solo because they would have to obtain the Solo coin, and so they do a buy. And then once they bought this, then Solo needs to be sold in another market for fiat, so that fiat can be transferred and be exited from the system. So it kind of balances out the trading, and it doesn't fall or it doesn't go up. It's fully balanced, and it's controlled in a controlled system as to we can deliver the settlement, the liquidity to these brokerage firms.
I guess simplified a little more, if I decided I wanted to buy a share of Amazon, so let's say I wanted to buy $500 worth of Amazon, and you transfer that, what would that process look like, from a layman's perspective?
How are you going to buy the Amazon stocks with? Are you going to be spending your Bitcoin or fiat?
Through your exchange. So would that be, do you have that option then?
No, obviously. But you need to have some sort of you need to pay with, you need to pay for that card, for the Amazon stock with something. It's
so let's say you take $500 fiat and transferring it over through the Sologenic exchange.
Well, I'll give you a more detailed example. Let's say that one BTC, you have one Bitcoin, and you want to transfer that to, you have one Bitcoin, you want to buy Amazon. So what happens is that one Bitcoin gets transferred to Solo, and that Solo gets transferred to fiat, and then goes through the Oracle. The brokerage gets paid, and then your tokens are issued and are transferred to your XRP address on the blockchain. And then you can exit exactly the same way, and you can redeem it via the same method.
Gotcha. It's a set. So the brokerage fee itself, it's a set fee. In other words, based on, is it a predetermined fee? I mean, is it something that?
It's the actual value of the stock.
Value of the stock. Gotcha. I'm saying because sometimes brokerages can charge. Anytime you make a trade, you do a buy. Usually it's when you sell it that there's going to be some sort of a fee paid, right? how does it pay dividends? So when dividends come around, like I'm just guessing it affects the value. Like you said, the solo can also go up as well, but it's probably the same, more along the same lines of regular dividend, right?
Well, for coins and for stocks that pay dividend, you have a lot of different scenarios. You have the dividend, you have the splits, you have so there's so many things that can happen outside of the blockchain. And so what the Oracle basically does is follow the outside rules. So if one stock, let's say you bought a stock that you're supposed to be paid dividend, then that dividend is paid to you upon redeeming your coins. So let's say you have stocks of X, and you hold that stock of X for a period of time, and once you try to redeem that coin, then at the point of redeem, you can get your dividend added on top.
Got it. All right, listen, Jeff, I think it's time to wind down. I mean, listen, this it's really been fantastic. I mean, going over this, I think I got swept up in the time. And hey, thank you for coming in here to On the Chain. We're building our own ecosystem of just different creators, and we like your project. Excited to talk about it. We're going to put the links down below to both CoinField and Sologenic. But is there any parting words you'd like people to know, viewers to know, before we go?
Links would be perfect. Sologenic.com, the website, white paper has the most up-to-date information about the ecosystem. We keep updating it on the website. And when we release the open source, then we're going to definitely have a call for community developers to join the project. And we encourage everybody to use these tools. We're not making anything new. We're just making abstractions of the existing technologies that are out there and make it a little bit easier for developers to work with, if they want to build something like Sologenic.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking your time out today and joining us here on the chain. We'll look forward to following up with you at some point as you guys launch and we start seeing Sologenic really rolling out and taking form. We'll definitely look forward to it.
Thank you, guys. It was great speaking with you too.
Yeah, great. Take care now.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. And for everybody that's watching, make sure that you join us at www.onthechain.io to check out other content from our other content contributors. So until then, we'll look forward to seeing you guys.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.